Before the apocalypse of John, before the visions of the end times that you know, there was another man who saw what no mortal should see. His name was Peter, the same Peter who walked with Christ, the same Peter who denied his master 3 times. And what he witnessed was so disturbing, so visceral, so impossible to digest, that the church decided to erase his vision from history. For almost 2,000 years, the apocalypse of Peter was buried, forbidden, forgotten. But today, you're going to discover why. And when you finish hearing this story, you will never see heaven and hell the same way again. It was an ordinary afternoon on the Mount of Olives. Peter was sitting beside Jesus, watching the Temple of Jerusalem in the distance, its white stones reflecting the golden light of the sunset. The other disciples were talking quietly among themselves, but Peter was restless. There was something in the air, a tension he couldn't name. Jesus looked at him. That look, Peter knew that look. It was the same one he had received when he tried to prevent Christ from talking about his own death. It was the look of someone who knows what is coming. "Peter," said Jesus, with a voice that seemed to come from another world, "do you want to see what awaits those who choose the path of light and those who choose darkness?" Peter hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no. Part of him knew that certain truths destroy the man who knows them. But he was Peter, impulsive, curious, incapable of backing down. "I want to see, Master." And then everything changed. The sky above him began to tear, not like fabric that rips, but as if reality itself was being peeled away, layer by layer, revealing something that existed beyond what human eyes were made to see. Peter felt his body become light, as if it were no longer made of flesh, but of something more subtle, more permeable. He was no longer on the Mount of Olives. He was somewhere else. The first thing Peter saw was the throne. Not an ordinary throne made of gold or ornate wood. This throne was made of pure light, so intense that it should have blinded Peter instantly. But somehow, he could look, and sitting on that throne was a figure he recognized. Christ, but not the Christ he knew. Not the carpenter from Nazareth, with his calloused hands and gentle smile. This was the glorified Christ, the judge of all humanity. Around the throne, a countless multitude, millions, billions, every soul that had ever lived, standing before that final judgment. Peter could see their faces. Some cried, some trembled, some were in absolute silence, as if they already knew what was coming. And then it began. One by one, the dead were called. Peter saw how their entire lives were revealed. Every secret thought, every word whispered in the dark, every action they thought no one had seen. Everything there, everything exposed. There were no possible lies, no excuses. Just the naked truth of who they really were, and Christ spoke. Sometimes he smiled. "Welcome, my good and faithful servant." Other times, his face contorted in pain. "I never knew you. Depart from me." Peter felt his heart shatter every time he heard those words, because he saw where those who were rejected went. And what he saw made him scream. Peter's hell is not what you imagine. It's not an abstract philosophical place, a separation from God, explained in polite sermons. What Peter saw was visceral, real, so horribly specific that every line of his description makes you feel the agony of those souls. He saw a river, but not of water, of fire, liquid flames that boiled and bubbled, and inside them people screamed. Their skins burned, regenerated, and burned again. Eternally, Peter tried to look away, but couldn't. It was as if something forced him to witness every second of that torment, and then he saw the specific punishments. This is what most disturbed the church, because Peter didn't just describe generic suffering. He described personalized punishments, adapted to the sins of each soul. He saw women who had killed their unborn babies, hanging by their necks, while the spirits of those children cried out for justice around them. The milk from their breasts turned into serpents that bit them endlessly. He saw men who had blasphemed against God, with their tongues being torn out by iron hooks, only to grow back and be torn out again. He saw those who had persecuted the righteous, plunged into pits of boiling excrement, the smell so unbearable that Peter vomited. Even while in spiritual vision, he saw blasphemers hanging over precipices of fire, holding on by their own hair, which burned slowly. Strand by strand, he saw those who had mocked the truth, with worms entering and exiting their eyes, devouring them from the inside out eternally. And the worst of all, Peter saw that they were conscious, fully conscious. They knew exactly why they were there. They remembered every choice that led them to that place. And there was no hope, none, only the crushing certainty that this would never ever end. Peter fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face. "Lord," he begged, "this cannot be real. This cannot be just." And Christ looked at him with eyes that contained all the sadness of the universe. "I died for them, Peter. I offered my life. But they chose this. Each one of them chose." But then the vision changed, and Peter saw the other side, paradise. If hell was concentrated horror, heaven was beauty beyond human comprehension. Peter saw gardens that extended to infinity, each flower singing praises in harmonies that made his soul vibrate. He saw rivers of crystalline water, so pure that just looking at them healed every wound, every pain, every bitter memory. He saw the righteous, not as pale ghosts floating on clouds, but as radiant beings, more alive than they had ever been on earth. Their clothes were made of light. Their faces shone like the sun, and they danced, they sang. They laughed with a joy so deep that Peter felt his heart would explode just from witnessing it. But what impressed him most was the hierarchy of heaven. Peter saw that not all the saved were equal. There were those who shone more intensely, who sat closer to the throne, who received greater honors. They were the martyrs, those who had suffered for Christ, those who had given everything. And then there were the others, still saved, still in paradise, but with a softer light, a more distant position. They were those who had lived lukewarm, mediocre, comfortable lives, saved by grace, yes, but with little to show for their lives. Peter understood then. Heaven wasn't just about getting in. It was about what you brought with you. Every act of love, every sacrifice, every moment of genuine faith, all of this transformed into eternal glory. And those who wasted their lives, even being saved, would carry the weight of that waste forever. When Peter woke from the vision, he was back on the Mount of Olives. But he was no longer the same man. His eyes had seen too much. His heart had felt too much. He knew now, with absolute certainty, what awaited every human being. He wrote everything down, every detail, every disturbing image, every glorious revelation. His text was copied, passed from hand to hand, read in early Christian communities throughout the region. And for a time, the Apocalypse of Peter was considered sacred scripture. It was among the most respected texts of the early church, read alongside the Gospels, cited by church fathers, treated as the divine word. But then, something changed in the 4th century when the church began to institutionalize, when emperors and bishops began to decide what was and wasn't appropriate for the faithful to read. The Apocalypse of Peter became a problem. Why? Because it was too specific, too visceral, too disturbing. The descriptions of hell weren't poetic metaphors that could be softened in sermons. They were brutally concrete images that haunted those who read them. And worse still, they were popular. Common people read the Apocalypse of Peter and were terrified enough to change their lives. And for a church that now sought political power, wealth, and influence, a text that placed the fear of God so rawly was inconvenient. So they decided. The Apocalypse of Peter was removed from the canon, labeled as apocryphal, discouraged, and eventually forgotten. Copies were destroyed. Mentions were erased. For centuries, Peter's vision existed only in fragments, whispered in marginal circles, considered heresy by many. Until in 1886, archaeologists found an almost complete copy in a tomb in Egypt, and the world could finally read again what Peter had seen. So why do you need to know this? Because Peter's vision raises a question that the modern church avoids. What if hell is real? Not metaphorically, not philosophically, but literally, physically, eternally real? What if every choice you make now, every sin you justify, every truth you ignore, really matters in a way you can't undo later? The church hid the apocalypse of Peter because it left no room for easy comfort. There was no soft theology there, just the raw reality of final judgment. Peter saw people who thought they had time, who thought they could repent later, who believed their good intentions would be enough. And he saw them in hell, crying out for a second chance that would never come. But he also saw something else. He saw that the door was still open, that as long as you're alive, as long as you can hear this story, the choice is still yours. Heaven is not a right, it's an invitation. And refusing that invitation has consequences your mind cannot fully comprehend. Peter spent the rest of his life preaching with an urgency that few understood. He wasn't afraid of death. He'd already seen what came after. And when he was finally crucified upside down in Rome, they say he was smiling because he knew, he had seen, and he had chosen his side. The question now is, which side will you choose? Because this isn't just an old story. It's not just an interesting apocryphal text. It's a warning, a glimpse of what you can't see yet, but is as real as the air you breathe now. The apocalypse of Peter was banned because the truth contained in it was too powerful, too disturbing, too transformative. And now that you know it, what will you do? Will you ignore it, as so many do? Will you rationalize, saying it's just symbolism, just an exaggerated vision from a superstitious era? Or will you let this story do what it was made to do? Wake you up? If this story touched you in some way, if something inside you stirred upon hearing these words, perhaps it's because you needed to hear this right now. Comment below, do you believe Peter's vision was real? Do you believe hell is literal? And more importantly, where will you be when your moment of judgment comes? Subscribe to the channel, but only if you have the courage to hear more truths that have been hidden from you. Because the story they told you isn't the complete story, and I'm here to reveal the rest.